Hi folks, in this episode I talk with Jen Gricus. She's the Director of Operations for Diggs and Gelsosimo's, two restaurants in downtown Lamont. We talk about a bunch of things, surviving COVID and small business, working with family, and some other interesting things. So tune in, I hope you enjoy the show.
Direction for me and face the wall because he couldn't keep it together.
So is that what you did like before?
Yeah, I did Fox Sports Net for like a decade in production, so I was an associate producer, and then I did all the editing, highlights and stuff like that, and then I went into the community relations and marketing for Fox Sports, and then integrated marketing for Rainbow Sports Nets, which is owned by Murdoch Fox, and they had like 6 regions, so I did that, and then I had kids and I did freelance work for MLB Network and NBA Entertainment, really up until COVID. I would still go out and shoot, so do stuff.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was quite the life before the kids came along.
And so then the kids came along, and were you like stay-at-home mom for a while?
Yeah, I stayed at home. I did 2 days a week. I had the same boss for like 15 years, and when she left Fox Sports, she went to Comcast Spotlight, which was the advertising end of Comcast, and then she just kept taking me with her, and then she just had me do 2 days a week for her in like digital marketing and advertising until they opened up Gels. And then I actually was about to go in for my final HR signing for my old job. I was about to take the marketing manager job at Comcast Sportsnet Chicago, and the morning of, I like freaked out, and I was like, Sal was like 3, and I was like, I can't. It was gonna be like probably 60 hours a week, and I was like, I can't be away from her. So I called them and I bailed on it, and then my dad said, move to Lamont, you can help us run Gels, and literally the house went on the market and we left.
So where were you living at that point?
In Beverly.
Oh, okay. In college, I mowed grass in Beverly,
It's a cool spot.
I worked for a landscaper that had, a bunch of accounts.
Yeah.
Like we just go from house to house all day long.
I mean, it's a great neighborhood. I still have lots of friends there. And it was a great place for the girls to grow up when they were little. It was a stark difference moving to Lamont, just because it's just so diverse in Beverly. And here it was very...
Right.
And so I miss that part of the city because the girls don't get to see that kind of diversity. They don't, they're in like a little bubble. But there were definitely cons to living there. It was even in Beverly, it was pretty dangerous. And so, this is a lot safer.
Sure. Yeah.
And shorter commute for me.
Well, right.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of living close.
Oh, yeah.
Our Lockport studio is literally 5 blocks from our house.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
You
and
can't beat it.
This is 10 minutes away.
Yeah. I'm sure this sucks when you're like, God, I gotta go to Lamont. Like, even that 10 minutes is like, oh.
It's really funny. I don't feel that way about Lamont, but I was just in Bolingbrook, and it's 20 minutes to Bolingbrook.
We're so spoiled.
Yeah, you get spoiled real quick.
For sure.
Your parents really opened Gels. That was your dad
was my dad's
tired
child.
of Lamont pizza.
My dad is in food distribution and has been for 45 years. And my dad went to high school with Tommy Gelsosimo, so the namesake of the business. And my dad would sell food to all of his franchisees. And so, and my dad's always wanted to have a family business. I don't know where it came from, but he just really wanted it. And they moved to Lamont like 23 years ago, and there was a missing piece. Like, there was no sit-down pizzeria in this town, and he just thought it was weird that they didn't have one. And so Tommy Gelsosimo was like, Eddie, you got to open one. And then they found the space on Main Street, convinced the guy to make it a pizzeria instead of like this office space, and then he signed a lease. And I was there when he signed the lease, and that was 8 years ago.
I remember when you guys were open, because we've been here since 2001, so it's like 21 years now for us. You guys were like magic, like from day one. One of the things, besides that, your really great pizza and everything else that you guys served there, but like you were known almost instantly for supporting all of the schools and all of the things, all of the civic groups and all of that. You were just a great addition to the community. Can I just ask whose idea that was? Or how did that happen?
Well, my parents live here, and they really wanted to give to the people, their neighbors. They're very philanthropic. My parents take in a ton of strays over the course of my life, my siblings' life. My dad was like, adopted dad to a lot of my friends, and my mom was vice president of nursing. She has a very big heart, and they really wanted to make that the place where the community could gather, and so they put their money where their mouth is. This is where they live. They wanted people to succeed. They wanted the kids to come in. So, I mean, obviously it had a marketing angle, because, you know, if you do enough fundraisers in the restaurant, more people are going to show up there.
Sure.
They're going to get a taste of the pizza. They're going to like it. And so it helped build the business. But at the end of the day, we all live here. They really wanted to support their neighbors. And I don't think anything brought them more joy at Gels than seeing rooms full of kids and parents and, you know,
right.
baseball teams, and like you guys had concerts. Like the amount of things that we did there is what made it so unique, you know.
Yeah, it was a great space, and everything runs its course.
Yeah.
So I guess while we're talking about Gels, so now Gels is being reinvented on Stephen Street.
Yeah, it's going to have another shift, I think. I think the problem is, like, so when COVID hit, we moved Diggs into Gels initially, and gave Diggs and all of its freezer space and refrigeration to Hope and Friendship Foundation. They ran the food pantry out of there for, I forget, 4 to 6 months. They fed 150 families out of there. Once we were in that space where the weather got nicer and the village was willing to give everybody around, whatever property was next to you, whatever outdoor space, they gave to all the restaurants so people could dine outside because no one was dining inside. We decided to buy a pizza oven and put it in Diggs, and we closed Gels and moved Gels into Diggs. Like, it went everything into Gels and then everything into Diggs. Because the lease went up in Gels. We didn't see, in the immediate future, the ability to put 152 people in that building because of COVID. We didn't know how long it was going to last. It's a huge space to keep up if you don't have any bodies in there. And there was really no outdoor area by our location. So the village was kind enough to partner with all of us, every restaurant, and we happened to be next to a courtyard. I convinced my parents to buy igloos. We bought the igloos, and then Diggs became a big thing. So Gels kind of took a back seat. We used to call that the mothership. The mothership was feeding Diggs, and then Diggs became the thing. We got so busy with running Gels and Diggs out of there that my parents were like, I don't know if we can keep up the pace in the small kitchen. We should probably look for another spot for Gels. And so they found the space that used to be Old Town. They went under during COVID, and my dad thought there would be the opportunity to do dine-in again over there. But the workforce never really came back. And so we had high expectations of opening full-time for dine-in, carry-out, and delivery, and we just couldn't find enough staff to operate 2 restaurants kitty-corner from each other.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that, because staffing is definitely weird now, right? And I think it's true in every business, but I got to think the food service business has to be exceptionally challenging. And so you're still struggling.
Still struggling.
What I was thinking today when I was thinking about this talk was, when you have 2 restaurants that are somewhat close to each other, are you able to cross-train?
So everybody that works at Diggs basically works at Gels and vice versa. Because most of them were trained on the pizza when they were under one roof anyway. But the challenge is that we're open 7 days a week, and we were open 7 days a week at both places. There's just not enough bodies. In my opinion, as the person who is on boots on the ground, is what I say. I'm always there. I didn't want both brands to suffer. I didn't want to rob Peter to pay Paul and then have all of us be broke. Because I just felt like I don't want service to suffer at Diggs when I knew we were busy just to get Gels off the ground, and not even have that be like full speed. Not even in the front of the house only, but the back of the house. You know, we used to we employed, I don't know, like 10, 15 to 16-year-old boys when we opened the Gels and the pizza in the kitchen. They just happened to be all dudes. I would have put chicks in there too, but nobody wanted to be back there. We just couldn't find that pocket of kids that wanted to work that hard in the kitchen, because it's hard work, and we just couldn't find them. I found a ton of girls to work up front, but I could not get my kitchen staffed, and you have to know what you're doing back there, because if you don't have a consistent product and a good product, people will not come back.
And that's really true of pizza.
Yeah.
You know, we had a pizza place that I really liked in Lockport. It changed hands, and I happened to know the new owners, and I said to them, don't change the pizza. Do you know what they did?
They changed it.
They changed the pizza, and that company is not around anymore.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you know, and it's hard to train. You have to have good people to train the kids so that they know what they're doing. So there was a gap there. I mean, it's still challenging. I mean, I'm training new people almost every week, and within 5 days, someone will be like, it's too hard. Like, I mean, they'll be very honest with you, and they'll say, because I'll have like older adults, and I say older, meaning like myself, people my age.
Yeah.
I thought I'd say that, but who will work like a day on the floor with our servers and like email me this just happened like yesterday. I got an email the next day saying, I woke up and I could barely walk. This job's too hard. I can't do it. No, it isn't for the weak. Service industry and customer service it can be very brutal. Well, it's hard to find.
I've been saying this a lot lately. I'm also like, you know, physically and and I will even say like mentally not as strong as I was before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And what's weird is I feel like this is just since the letdown, right? During the pandemic, we worked ourselves and you guys worked yourselves just to the bone.
Right, just to survive.
I didn't feel a problem. I didn't feel like this problem. And now like I have a little bit of trouble focusing and I can't work the way that I used to be able to work.
Yeah, I don't even know if I can, I don't know that I can. It's just that I don't know that I have the mental stamina. And I feel like we're still having to reinvent the wheel. Like COVID hit, and so then we're all thinking outside the box, like, all right, what if we did this? How do we keep people coming? Like, how do we keep people safe? And so your creative energy gets thrown into just surviving, and then they open the doors again, and then you're like, oh, what do I have left in the tank to keep going forward? And you just you hit a wall eventually, and you're like, I need strong people to help me because I can't do this all myself. I felt like, when you're like the owner, you're trying to keep everybody employed, there's so much pressure, and then it eases off a little bit, but now it's all new challenges, and so it's like we never really got out of it. One challenge happened, we got through that, then another challenge happens, and you're just constantly jumping hurdles.
And I've been talking a lot about there is a future normal out there, but we have no idea what that is today because we're still probably more in the middle than we were first 2 years of COVID, when it was like lockdown every other week and all that other stuff. Because then we did know that it was about how do we survive this week? That's all we were worried about. How do we survive this week? And now we're like, well, what does it look like? Well, it looks one way today, but then we can't staff appropriately. And the staff that we do find has different expectations and standards. Oh, yeah,
because people stayed home for 2 years, working from home. There's flexibility that doesn't really exist once you reopen.
That's part of it, but it's also, I think, we've started to think about life differently. What was normal, acceptable, and what we wanted is not the case anymore. And we want different things. The world looks different. So I know somebody who was just retired at a fairly early age. He's my age because he's a reasonable middle level executive type, but the company finally called and said, hey, you got to come back into the office, and he's like, nope,
I'm out. Yeah. Well, because you reprioritize too, right? You spend all this time with your family, you think about your health, how short life is, you never know. And I think that mindset hits and you're like, is it worth working 70 hours a week? Is it, worth missing my kid's game or whatever when they're so used to having you as well? I mean, I have 3 kids, so we spent a lot of time together, and then it was like, no, we're back off to the races. And I didn't even I worked all the way through the pandemic. So So, I saw them more because every time I came home, they were there. They weren't going to dance or anything. They were home. But I do think people think about life differently. I think that's definitely part of it. I have mixed feelings about the assistance from the government. There's so many things that factor into the why we are where we are, but it doesn't really matter. It is what it is. I hate that saying, but it's true. It is what it is. Like, this is the hand that we're dealt. Now, how do we get through it? What's our next creative move to adapt and be successful?
Gelsosimo's, I say Gelsosimo's, but it's Gelsosimo's.
Sauce in the middle.
It's kind of still in a strange place, because it was kind of shut down, and now we're trying to revive it.
Yeah.
Diggs was really just getting started when the pandemic happened.
Right.
Do we feel good about Diggs now?
I feel strong about Diggs. I really do. I think, again, it's like why Gels was so successful out of the gate. We did so many things that no one else was doing that it brought a lot of attention. And again, I give the Village of a lot of credit. Letting us share space and green space helped us. We just happened to be in a really good spot. The igloos that we have and the music and all the things that we do outside the building draws people down here, and it drew people to Diggs, and it put us on the map. We probably wouldn't have made it. If I didn't have the igloos out there, we probably would not have survived COVID. 95% sure it would not have made it. People didn't even know we were there.
Yeah,
so
you were so new.
Yeah, and then it all went down.
Do you wonder, so Diggs is even really different with all the outdoor dining. Do you wonder what you were thinking about? Because the indoor space at Diggs is really small. Yeah. The dollars that you can generate in the indoor space. And I think we had the conversation at the beginning. You were really hoping that the bar part of it was going to be the big part of it. The dining was a plus, but because there was so little seating, that was going to really affect it. But now the dining, because you have the outdoor space,
doubles it, more than doubles it. Yeah, I think even before the pandemic had hit, though, we knew that space was just basically unused. It was an untapped gold mine. People would buy food from us and just go sit out there, but it was, and the Village did what they did to keep it up, but there was really nothing out there. It was like a dog area, and there was, 3 tables. We had talked about leasing that space before the pandemic had happened. Once we were like, okay, maybe spring we start signing a lease with the Village and see if they're willing to let us kind of beautify it a little bit. And then the pandemic happened, and then it happened organically without us even having to ask. But I honestly don't think without that space we could generate. I mean, the space is small, so, you know, we don't have to sell that much to keep a space that small going.
Sure.
But for sure, the outside is what keeps us going.
Well, and I do think it's a much nicer use of that space. You know, we stared at it for 10 years, and it was just an awkward little park, really.
Right.
I mean, it was nice, it was fine, but it really, as you said, it wasn't really useful for anything.
I mean, and I think that the village capitalized on it too. I mean, I always feel that way, is that we profit from it, obviously, but it's also a huge marketing thing for the village of Lamont. Look, when we have those igloos out there, we were bringing people in. When you see where they're from, it's like Kankakee, Milwaukee. I mean, all over the place, because
That's interesting.
So we had people come down and be like, oh, we just drove down here because we heard you had igloos.
Yeah.
I never knew Lamont was here. So, you know, we do our best to do things that help the village as well. I mean, we're partners in this. We do community events out there. You know, if people want to sit out there, they don't have to order from us. They can go sit in the tables that we bought and hang out and listen to live music. You know, we do live music Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 times a week. I mean, we do what we can to help everyone down here. We go about it thinking the better businesses that we have down here collectively, the better we all do. And so the drive-by traffic is going to help. There's going to be a family that sees you guys. There's going to be a family that sees Matt's Barbecue that would have never known they were there, but they came to see the igloos. And then they're like, oh, who knew that all this was there?
We're one of the longest standing businesses in downtown Lamont. We've been here, as I mentioned, 21 years. It's totally different place. It is way better. Some things I don't like. It's really crowded, you know.
And it's only going to get more crowded because the residents, like even the state of the village, like the residential growth is like one of the biggest in the southwest suburbs is Lamont, which is remarkable and amazing. I do worry, like the infrastructure, everything's a 1-lane scenario. So,
right.
I mean, I lived in Chicago and I got used to there being that much traffic. Now I try to get across State Street and I'm like, this is taking me 5 minutes. So it's great. You know, there's going to have that apartment building complex down the road in probably like 2-3 years. I think we're all going to just continue to grow, but it's like if we build it, they will come. And now we got to put the streets in so they can get here, kind of thing.
And more parking, I think.
Yeah, I think parking is always going to be the thing, and no matter what town you're in. And so, you know, with the historical district, you're limited as to how much you can do. And I don't think it's an ignored topic. I just think it's like long-term strategies to try to find spaces that are maybe defunct, and now we need to repurpose them. And I think behind the scenes, I'm confident that people are working on it. Sure. And then eventually there's going to be a green light that says, okay, we're good to go. We're going to make this a parking deck or whatever. Yeah, there's challenges with growth, obviously. A lot of pluses, but when you live in the suburbs, you want to park. You don't want to go more than a block. You don't want to walk. I mean, I would walk like 2 miles to my apartment in the city, and I was like, that was an awesome spot. Here, it's like, if I'm not parked within like 5 feet, like I'm going to circle around and go somewhere else, because that's the mentality.
Right, and the restaurant patrons are the same way.
Oh yeah.
If it's too crowded, I mean, if I pull up to the drive-through and it's too long, I'm out.
Absolutely. I'm like, I can't wait for this. That's why I pre-order everything now. And when that doesn't work, I'm like, oh, well, forget it. I'm just not going to go. So yeah, I think, you know, I'm not in the hot zone with my kids anymore. They're older. I always think people who have like 3 kids under 10, they're in that zone where they're just like, I got to take a car seat out and a stroller, and I'm just trying to drop one kid off, and it's a nightmare. It's a logistical nightmare in your head. And so when I see all the moms and the dads like with their kids in tutus, and I'm just like, go get it. I don't even know how to help. Like, there's no way to help. I can hold the door, but that's about it because there's no parking. They're just circling around. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be challenges, and there always are. But I do think, I'm confident that the village is working on it. We're successful because we partner with the village so much, and I do think that they listen. It may not be a turnkey thing where you can fix it right away.
It takes time.
It takes time. And so, obviously, they know that we're growing as a community. So, they're, I'm sure, behind the scenes, spinning the reels, trying to figure out how to make it work. We obviously need bodies and seats. I'm welcoming it. It's just, I also understand the frustrations with customers who come down here who can't really get parking.
It's all of us that are creating that problem.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, we are. It's all like, well, I will say, I don't see the line stopping so much anymore on, you know, I don't know what happened to change that, but I do remember even myself being like, I can't get to the door, like, because we'd be trapped around the corner.
Yeah.
And we're surrounded by railroad tracks, so it was charming. It's also a logistical nightmare.
I do think it getting busier has prevented people from thinking that they can just stop and drop.
Agreed.
You know,
a lot of horns blowing now.
We never encouraged that.
Oh, no.
You know, because it was scary sometimes, you know, that they don't even wait for the minivan door to close.
No, it's just like, go, go, go. I mean, it's like school drop-off. There's so much pressure, and you're just like, you know, I mean, I've driven down the street with the side door open because my kid jumped out, and I was like, I gotta go. I used to turn the corner and shut the door.
And you were not alone.
Oh, no.
We would see it all day.
I mean, it is comical to watch them across the street sometimes, but also sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I hope that kid looks both ways, because, you know, you just don't know.
Nobody's been injured or died in all the time that we've been here. So.
Thank God.
So you mentioned your 3 girls, and you do work a lot. All of us business owners on Canal Street, but I'm sure this is small business owners everywhere,
Sure.
right? We work a lot. How do you do that with 3 kids?
Yeah, I mean, my kids have grown up in the restaurants. Stella was 3.
Our kids, grew up in the studio.
Right. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, there's a blessing to owning the business because I can bring my kids to work. We allow our staff oftentimes, if they've got childcare issues, to have the kids sit in a corner, do their homework, whatever. That's the flexibility of having the business. So my kids, I mean, when they were here at Allegro, they would shuffle across the street. Right. It would be like one's in, one's out. I'd feed them over there. They'd do homework over there, and they'd just come back. But obviously, the support of family is really what is the only way I can do this, because my parents, though they own it, I am their director of operation. I'm the one who's there most of the time. My mom retired a year and a half ago from the hospital and became like the chauffeur for my 3 kids and my nephew. But then she quickly took a job at Loyola. Now she's teaching nursing at Loyola. So then we were like, oh no, who's going to drive the kids around? But we get a ton of support from my parents. I mean, my girls would probably prefer to be with them than me, but now my girls work for me. It's the other part of having a business is that all 3 of them are there. I mean, Stella's 11, but she does dishes in the back and she hosts and she answers phones because she can, because she's mine. And then my other 2 work there as well. So when they're not at school or dance or theater, they're working, and they pay for their Harry Styles tickets. They they work hard, and they brought all their friends. So I have like 20 15-year-olds, all girls, and they all look the same, and they all work for me.
Our kids still work for us too.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, one of yours plays for me every. Yeah, so I love it. Like I love seeing all the kids come in and they all grow and change, then they move on. But this generation of kids, they work hard. I mean, it's like, there was a period of time where there was a pocket where there was like a couple years where the teenagers didn't have the work ethic that the ones had when we first opened, and now they're back. Like they work hard, they take pride in what they do. Maybe it's because I know so much of them and they don't want to disappoint, but their parents are, make them responsible. And I mean, I'm very hopeful about the future of this next round of kids coming into the workforce, because they show up on time, they do their job, and we get more compliments on our kids and how well behaved they are from customers all the time. Like, because they can't believe that there's a 15-year-old girl who's not sitting on her phone the entire time, and they're actually engaging and looking at you. And so my girls have grown so much just being forced to talk to people who are at their family's restaurant. It's awesome.
That was restaurants everywhere all the time. There's a Thai place in Lockport, and husband and wife that run it. They've got a little guy, I would say he's maybe 4th grade or something. I see him in there quite regularly. He's not working yet, but they're doing his schoolwork and stuff. In fact, I saw a clarinet the other day. This band is starting. And then they just had a baby in January. Oh. And so the baby's there a lot. Yeah. They're bouncing him in the stroller. Oh, yeah. In between. I mean,
I think Stella lived on dum-dums for like 2 years. She just walked around. I mean, and they'll grow up in that environment too. They become like the mascots. I mean, my kids were like the mascots for Gels and Digs. I'm sure there were times they were frustrated by it because they just they would rather be home than there. Right. But they've grown to appreciate it, and they've watched the growth of the business and how hard I work and their grandparents work, and it's something to be admired. And I hope they, strive to achieve those same things and work that hard. Yeah.
Well, I think your parents are really lucky to have roped you in so early. The company would not look the same without you. Very, very clearly, like, you're the face. Like, we're all really surprised to find out that you don't own it. Or that you weren't the one who started it.
Right.
At least, because you are. I think that it's your personality that kind of flows through that.
Yeah. My mom gets the most glory, but she's only there 1 day a week. But it's fine. I'll let her take it.
Well, she's both of your parents are super great.
They really are. I mean, I lucked out. Like, as far as like the lottery for parents, I scored pretty high on that. But no, I like that Diggs is really my baby. I look at that as like that was my brainchild that came up with the name. Obviously we all work collectively on menu and things like that, but I'm proud of it in a way that, even though I was proud of Gels and I obviously did the marketing for all that and got it on the map, there's something special about Diggs, and maybe it's because it's not a franchise, maybe it's because it's ours and we create it. I take a special pride in that. All the people that work there, I mean, they are also the personality of that restaurant, because I have the same people. I've had people work for me for the last 8 years, haven't gone anywhere. I had kids who were 15 when they started with me, who are now serving and are like in college, and it's because of what my parents, the way that they treat me, then I treat the staff, and it's family. And so that's what I want people to feel like when they come in there, is that they know it's a family-run business. Like, they should feel that way when you walk in. And so I took those notes from my parents. So I thank you for saying it's me. But honestly, it comes from the direction of them.
We are our parents. And,
oh, yeah.
And I feel the same way. I lucked out in the parent arena. We lost my dad a year ago.
I know, I'm sorry.
At 89. And
it's a long life.
It's a long, good life. He lived until he passed. He wasn't sick very long at the end. Good parents make a difference.
They do.
And I've seen you with your girls. You're passing it along to the next generation.
Yeah, I have a little different approach than my mom. I'm a little bit more like my dad, so pretty straightforward with them. But I think that they would choose to spend time with me if they had the option. So yeah.
Most people would rather spend time with their grandparents because there isn't the same expectation.
It isn't. The difference is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have grandchildren yet, but I keep warning my children, you better get on it. What do you think is like the most important thing that you've learned in these last 8 years?
I thought about this when you messaged me some of the questions. There's a lot. But I think having to be, adapting to things, it's like you have to be patient and you have to adapt. You have to be patient with your staff, your customers, circumstances, floods. Like there's just so many things that you're not prepared for. And I feel like I go in every day waiting for a fire drill because you just don't know. These buildings are old. There's just so many things that could run amok and you're just like, you're on the balls of your feet the whole time just waiting. So you have to be able to adapt and adjust like in a moment's notice. And not just, short term, but also long term. Like COVID, we all had to adjust. Our igloos, there's going to be more competition this year. I'm always thinking like, what's the next thing that I have to do to up the game so that, I raise the bar for not just us, but so I keep us in the top of all the places people can go. I want them to come to us. It's constantly adjusting and adapting and really having to be very creative from a staff perspective, from a menu perspective, from events. And I think that's kind of when you were saying that, I don't know if I have the mental capacity to do this as much. It does become exhausting because you're just like, you're only as good as your last thing. You're just constantly like, how do I make it better?
Yeah.
More efficient. I think adjusting and being creative and just really having to think outside the box, which works for me. That was my career, journalism, communications, all the advertising. It's in my blood, so I enjoy the challenge, but it can be relatively exhausting. And then being patient. You have, in the restaurant business, there's a lot of transient people that work for you. They're in there for a little bit, then they're moving on to the next thing. This is not their chosen profession. I've been blessed to have people who chose this as their profession, and it's a hard way to go, but it's rewarding too. So you have to be patient with expectations. It's hard to have the same expectations for a 20-year-old kid who's like coming in and they're going to be leaving in a year. It's hard. I think being patient with the staff and, all that stuff is very difficult. I love them all, but it's like I have 46 children that, are underneath my, my umbrella, and I love them dearly. They are the ones that call me at midnight. They're the ones that call me at 6 in the morning. And it's really, I'm not a real patient person, so it's taught me to be more patient.
Yeah, and I'm pretty set in my ways, and the last few years in particular have taught me how to be more patient, more flexible, more understanding. I don't know if understanding is really the word. Tolerant.
Tolerant. Yeah, no, it sounds like it has like a negative connotation, but like being tolerant of the fact that like they're not everyone is the same, so they don't approach things the same, and they value their job differently depending on their own circumstances. I'm always trying to put myself in that person's shoes, but then I'm also trying to teach them and guide them and make them better people. That's one of my main goals. Like when I watch kids who have left me and gone to college, they're in the Air Force, they're attorneys, and they come back and they say to me, this was one of the best jobs I ever had that prepared me for what I was doing. And like the love that you and your parents showed me made me want to seek out other places to work that are like that. And it's unique, it's hard to find, but you need to feel respected. And I tell my girls, like, that's where you want to be. You want to end up somewhere where you feel that you're appreciated and respected, and then you offer that the same thing to the employer. So I derive a lot of joy from watching the growth of the people that work for us, for sure.
We're always sad when they particularly if they were really good.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, you gotta go to college.
Right, and then they go off to whatever. But we've, graduated people from employees to school teachers and to all kinds of different careers, engineering and things like that. And that's exciting to see too.
It is. It's so fun. And I'm sure you get the same phone calls and the same text messages or Facebook posts.
Best job I ever had, and I didn't appreciate it.
Right, and you're like, man, what was I thinking? My mom always says it. For as challenging as an employee can be, and they really push you to your limit of patience and tolerance, think of all the kids that have worked for us who consider us family. And for some of these kids, we were more a family than what they had. It's so important, and it's so much responsibility. That's why when I think of teachers and people who work with kids constantly, like how important that is. And sometimes you don't even know how important you are to that person because you don't know all their circumstances. I try to think about all those things when I get up every morning and the messages come with a call off, and I'm like, why? And I'm like, okay, I'm doing God's work.
We're both kind of in service businesses, right? You know, so we're serving kids and we're serving parents, but we're also serving our employees.
Yeah.
You know, that is part of it. That I think is probably one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years. We're serving everyone in our business, whether they're an employee or a student or a parent or, you know, even somebody just walking by, just trying to figure out what's going on. You know, it's a service job. I guess, you know, I guess life is a service job.
It is. Yeah. And so you have to just keep on going at it and approaching it as positively as you can. Some days are easier than others. There are the days where it's like the best thing ever, you know, because really it's rare that my parents will say, no, that's not a good idea, or no, we can't afford it, or whatever, you know. So sometimes I really have to go to bat for what I want and what I think is going to work for the business. But it's very hard to separate church and state. What used to be fun family Sundays, watching the Bears and hanging out at home at my parents' house, has become, as soon as I walk in there, it's the only time I see them. And so it's very challenging. I'm their employee, but I'm their daughter and their grandkid. It's so entangled that there are days where I'm like, I wish I didn't work here so that I could have just my mom and dad as my mom and dad. I do pine for those days, frankly. There were days where I'm just like, we're too tight, this is too entrenched, and I'm like, I can't see the separation anymore. Like, I never want to disappoint them. I don't want to be disappointed in them or their decisions, and I think it's really hard in the family business to stay in the lane. This is family time, this is work. In a small business, that's hard to do.
Yeah. Lori and I are never off the clock. We tend to come at each other with all of this stuff when the other one is not ready to have those discussions.
Yeah, but we need to do it now.
Right. It's really challenging.
It is challenging. I mean, marriage is a lot of work to begin with, and then you throw the business on top of it. I mean, same with children and parents. Those are very intense relationships that I can see imploding. I see, you know, I'm sure there have been families that have been ripped apart from things like that. And you know, we try hard and we're constantly reminding each other to try to find that separation. There are days where it's virtually impossible. We're like, I just need the space, but there's no space because we're always in the same space. That's hard. That's hard. And my kids working for me now, they come home from a shift and they're like, oh my gosh, you won't believe it. I'm like, now I know how they felt when I would come home every day and be like, this customer said this. I'm like, it's just food. Like, you know, so they say the same things that I say. And I'm like, oh no, I've created monsters.
I knew an Aurelio.
Yeah.
Like Aurelio's Pizza.
Yes.
He eventually moved to Colorado just because you're never really out.
You're not.
You know,
never
you're
out.
just never out.
Well,
as an adult. Like,
right. He's like,
he's in his 30s and he's like, I am gone.
Yeah, there is no way to be a part of it and not be a part of it at the same time. Like you and Lori, I'm on the clock from the minute I go to bed till the minute I wake up. It could be the most minor thing or a huge thing, but you always have one foot inside that restaurant, mentally or whatever.
And you guys are 7 days a week,
We are.
Yeah. So we somewhat intentionally like close for one day.
Yeah.
Just so that we know nothing can blow up that day.
I gotta be honest, on the holidays, like we don't open for any holiday, right? Unless the staff decides they want to work on a holiday because they think maybe they'll make good tips or something, we leave it up to the staff. I'm always like, let's not work on the holiday because I don't want any phone calls. I don't want anyone to call me with anything. If the place floods, I'll find out about it Monday. There's like 5 days a year where I don't have to worry about something happening. Or I'm somewhere in Wisconsin where I have no signal and I'm like, somebody else is gonna have to handle this. Because no matter how much autonomy you give to management, they still feel like they need to tell you everything. And so I'm like, that could wait till never. Like, I don't ever need to know that you discounted someone's burger. Like, you can make that call. They don't want to disappoint you either. So it's just it's hard.
Yeah. So we actually told our staff, you know, if it is a dollar amount, if that you can spend up to that dollar amount to make a customer happy, and I don't care, and I don't ever have to hear.
Oh, I like that. I may adopt that.
Yeah, it's great because and like every business could adopt that. There's a dollar amount.
There's a dollar amount. You're right.
You know,
for sanity, basically.
Well, and we want our customers to be happy, right? And because you know we're in business for money. That's how we put our kids through college and all of those other things. But at the same time, if it's miserable for our customer, then it becomes miserable for us.
Right. It just
festers. And it doesn't matter how much money.
Right. And then you've already lost that window of opportunity to fix the problem. I agree. I mean, I think even though we're on the other side of it, so for me, when I'm like, it's just food. Like, I mean, I get it. People are paying for a product. They want it to be the way they ordered it. But, you know, my dad actually says this all the time, and he doesn't say this in a flippant manner, but he's like, you know, we're not curing cancer. Like, when things go wrong, I always tell my staff, I'm like, no one's dying because we screwed up a fajita. Like, you know.
It's funny you say that. We say no one dies in music lessons.
Right? It's like, okay, we may have hit a wrong note somewhere along the way, but like, no one's going down. I mean, I guess in my industry, I guess you could conceivably take somebody out. But I always say to them, so the first thing I usually tell a new trainee is, I'm like, it's food. We're not curing cancer. We're here to serve food. So you can never do anything that's so terrible that, you know, we're not going to recover from it. I mean, you're just not. And so the perspective you've also gained a lot of perspective in this job, because you're just like, this.
For sure.
I mean, my patience level at other restaurants, I'm always like, oh man, they're probably short-staffed. Like, you come up with reasoning and logic, and you're like,
sure.
I feel bad for that server. I think everyone should have to work in the service industry in their life.
Or, you know, work in a small business where they realize that things happen. It's just the way it is. You know, I'm also like really patient. Like, I don't care, you know, if it takes too long, or if the order isn't made right or whatever, you know.
Like, nobody goes into work intentionally trying to screw up somebody else's day. My mom says it all the time. And it's not worth bringing somebody down for $5 or whatever, you know. So, but I do think the kids that work for us, they all learn that too. Just like yours, like if someone has a bad parent experience, but they take that and they grow from it.
Because you do want to care. You never want to stop caring.
Right.
I think that's the reason why we're in our businesses is because we care.
Yes.
We're not McDonald's. You know, you're not McDonald's.
Right.
Or, you know, we're not whatever, you know, corporate version of us is. We are in it for the people, for the customer. When I bought the Lockport location, it became really clear to me that there were people there that needed that place. Yeah. We were family to people that didn't have great family.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, you know, I knew very quickly that was our purpose. It was really just to be a place where, because musicians are weirdos, you know, and dancers. I mean, I am one. You know, I'm not. You know,
I would never call you a weirdo.
Well, thanks.
To your face,
I
probably, but
that.
no.
You know, but everybody needs a place to belong.
Yeah.
You know, it's whether it's Cheers, you know.
Yeah,
or
it's true though.
Whatever.
Like it really is true, and it is sometimes someone's safe space. Like, they just go there and they feel like. I had a server before I left here say to me, "There's a little 6-year-old who has a crush on me, and every time he comes here, he learns to either like order something new or like he grows a little bit each time he shows up and gets a little more brave." And you know, I mean, I've got kids with disabilities that go there all the time, and they are so safe in that space. They know that we all understand them and we love them, and I don't know that, and not everyone has the luxury of doing that. Some corporations and franchises don't have the ability to be that connected to their customers because it's so transactional, and like their numbers are really studied. You know, you can only spend so much time doing this. So we're fortunate that we can, but yeah, we are. You do get very attached to the people that come through your door, and sometimes you are that safe space.
That's one of the truly great things about, you know, having our own businesses, and you know, we can kind of make a bit of a difference that way. You know, it makes it worthwhile at the end of the day when you can't stand that one customer.
It's like, God, that one person. I mean, it's like you want to put up a wall and just have the person's face and be like, do not serve this person. And then I'm like, what happened to them today that this was the aftermath of what happened to them earlier? Right. You know, in my mind, I'm like, it's like a movie. If you like backtrack like 10 hours and you have no clue what happened to them. But in the moment, you're like, wow, I'm getting yelled at about French fries. Like, it's just... It's mind-numbing when you think about all the other things going on in, you know, your life or whatever. But yeah, maybe that was just the straw that broke the camel's back that day, and you just try not to jump over the counter and freak out on them.
So you recommend it? Like, if somebody, you know, had the opportunity to run a small business, you know, own a small business? Whatever.
I mean, if you have, I would say you got to check off a lot of boxes before you go and make that move. You know, you have to have a lot of support from family. Like, you have to have more than, it takes a village. It literally takes the support of a lot of people. And you got to be tough. Like, you know, you got to imagine that it's going to not be easy. Like, people are like, oh, I'm going to open a restaurant. I'm like, oh man. Like,
no, I've thought about that too. You know, I thought I would like to do a really simple one. I'd like to have a hot dog joint. Just like, you know, really the best hot dogs you can imagine. Some fries, maybe a couple other little sides, but, you know, just keep it really simple. But anything else, like you said, you guys are like 7 days a week. It's 24/7. There's going to be a flood, or freezer go out, or something.
Oh, constantly.
You know,
I mean, the AC, putting a new $30,000 air conditioner on the roof because the building's 100 years old. I mean, yes, and I will say, like, you need financial backing, good support, like emotionally, and a bunch of patience, but a lot of like fortitude and a lot of getting ready to get your hands dirty because it takes a long time to build it, and it's like you think that's hard, and then you just maintaining it is just as hard. It's just, you know. So, yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. I think no matter where I end up or whatever happens with digs or gels is that it's an accomplishment that I'm super proud of. I think what you said, I mean, I think we've made a difference. I think people would miss us if we weren't there.
Without doubt.
For more reasons than the burgers. And I think if you derive a lot of joy from being around people and doing good work, then yeah, I mean, it's certainly an adventure.
So you mentioned you're at 46 employees. What is fully staffed for both restaurants, like full tilt?
Yeah, I mean, on a busy night, we usually have 4 or 5 in the kitchen, and I usually have at least 4 servers, like 4 hosts, a bus, a bartender or 2, a manager. So there's a lot of folks running around a very small restaurant. Finding that balance is even hard. Like, how many people do you put on to give great service but still have the servers make money? So, there's like a whole game that I play. I always say it's like a beautiful mind where you're just like drawing circles and lines everywhere. And like, if I move that person here, I could do this person here. And like, you come in an hour later. And I mean, it's like every day. So yeah, there's a lot of people on my staff, but so many of them have limited availability.
Right.
So you're just, I mean, I have an Excel sheet that's like this long with just,
most of our employees are part-time too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I only have probably 3 full-time employees.
So 75, 80 to fully staffed.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to have both, it would have to be. Well, I probably could get away with like 50 to 60.
If they had a lot of availability.
If they had a lot of availability and enough experience, I mean, I can get away with 3 guys in my kitchen if they have experience. It's going to take 5 if I've got anybody under 20. Luckily, our kitchen, they do such a great job. And I've got a lot of seasoned guys back there that took us a long time to find. So we're very fortunate. I always say when people are like, oh my God, this was so amazing. You do such a great job. I'm like, I don't really do anything. I'm like, those guys back there and your server are doing it. I'm like a puppeteer, but really they're out there killing it. Yeah, my staff is
we never
special.
hear anything negative about Diggs. Like, not a word.
Oh, thanks.
It's like, people like it. I go there for the burger.
I know.
It's one of the best burgers in town.
I mean, my dad would be very proud to hear you say that. It is part of the meat company he works for. That
it is, and I've eaten burgers at most of the restaurants in town.
Yeah.
So I don't joke about that.
Yeah, you're not just blowing smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's tough. There's a lot of people that work there. There's a lot of Dig shirts running around Mont. That's all I know.
Well, Jen, thanks for taking this time.
Thanks for asking me to be part of it. It's
Absolutely.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good time. Whenever we've got something else to say.
Yeah, hey, hit me up. I'm across the street
right.
most days.
All right. Thanks.
All right, you're welcome.